Hello, I'm Kerr. Welcome to my art studio. People often get confused about watercolour pencils and water-soluble pencils. So in this video I'm going to explain the difference and I'll give you some tips and techniques on exactly how to use them. So, are you ready? So let's have a look at the difference between water-soluble and watercolour pencils, and you will find links to all these products in the description down below this video. So let's turn the camera down to the desk and have a look. So here we have the different kinds of water-based pencils. We've got watercolour pencils, we have Inktense pencils and water-soluble graphite. Now, all these particular pencils are water-based, so they're all water-soluble. Water-soluble, water-soluble, water-soluble. However, they all contain a different sort of medium. Those contain watercolour, those contain ink, and those contain graphite. So the only watercolour pencils are these, because they have watercolour in them, just like the watercolour in your paint box. It's just that it contains a lot more binder to make it hard, and it can be formed into a pencil. So these are watercolour. These are very different. They have ink in them, and they tend to be a little more intense and a little brighter than the watercolour. And these have graphite, just like your sketching and drawing pencils, except they are water soluble. So that's the difference. These are all water soluble, but those are the only ones that are watercolour. The Inktense pencils and the water soluble graphite are almost permanent when they're dry, but the watercolour pencils, you can lift them with a damp brush from the paper, not as much as you can with ordinary watercolour paints, but they will lift from the paper. But these are fairly permanent, not completely, but fairly permanent when they're dry, which means that you can layer them, one layer on top of another. Here I've got two colours. I've got a watercolour and an Inktense pencil. I've tried to find colours that are fairly similar. They're not exact, but they're near enough. And I've already made those wet, so you can see the difference in the consistency. Now I've made some more patches of colour here, and if you watch, under the watercolour one, if I start to wet this, you might wonder why I started from the bottom and went up to the top. See if you can work it out while I do the next one. Start at the bottom and work my way up. Worked it out yet? Yes. I started where there was the least amount of pencil, and I worked up to where there was the most amount of pencil. Because if I do it the other way, watch what happens. Can you see that if I start where there's the most amount of pencil, it drags the colour down all over where there is the least amount of pencil, and I get just one tone. But here, where I started with the least amount of pencil and I worked my way towards the most amount, I get this lovely graded effect. So the answer is, you have to start in the lightest area and work towards the darkest area. Now with the graphite, you don't even have to think about putting lots of pencil where you want it to be dark and a small amount of pencil where you want it to be light, because it's all done for you. There is a dark wash, a medium wash, and a light wash. So let's put the light wash down first. And then follow that with some medium wash. and then finish it off with some dark wash. And then I'll take my paintbrush, a bit of clean water, start with a light and work my way down. There we go. I love this water-soluble graphite. I think it's so exciting. See how it's light wash, medium wash and dark wash. Now let's have a go at using the pencils. We'll do some little sketches. Some of them I'll use the Inktense on their own, and some of them I'll use the watercolour on their own, and I'll also mix them up together and maybe throw in a bit of the water-soluble graphite as well. So here we go. Now we'll have a go at doing a little painting with hardly any drawing. I've just put a little line where I want the little range of mountains to be, and that's all I've drawn. I start off by putting in my light colours, so in this case it's my yellow. Now I want to put some purple or a sort of violet-y colour at the top, and I don't want my yellow to be next to the violet-y colour, because if it is and it mixes up with it, you probably know that violet and or purple and yellow are complementary colours, and therefore they will just make a muddy greyish brown colour if I let them mix up. So I'm just going to be putting in my yellow first. So I won't let it get anywhere near that purple. And then I'll pop in some orange. I always think this is the exciting part of using water-soluble pencils. You never quite know what's going to happen. It's a bit like watercolour in a way. Watercolour is very, very exciting because it's that little bit unpredictable. Now up next to the purple I'm going to put some red, because I know that will blend with it beautifully. You have to sort of imagine what the painting is going to look like while you're doing this. Just move that down a little bit in the middle of the camera, that's better. Now just before I wet this, some people I know take their pencils and they rub them onto a piece of paper, and then they take the water brush and wet them, and then they take that and paint their picture. Well, to me that really isn't very much different to having a little travel box and dipping your brush into your travel box. However, if you don't happen to have your watercolour paint box with you, then of course you can absolutely do it this way, and there's nothing wrong with that. But to me this is just like ordinary watercolour painting. The excitement and the magic for me is doing it this way. So let's take our watercolour brush. I'll have a tissue in one hand because I'm going to do my light colours first. As we saw over here, it's very important to do your light colours first, and then I might want to take those light colours off my brush before I do anything else. So I'll just go in with this is a gorgeous yellow. The Inktense pencils do tend to be that little bit more intense. Inktense, intense. It's very clever actually. Now I'll take the yellow off my brush and I'm going to come back and pop into the orange and the red. This to me is the magic. I think just putting it on a piece of paper like this and just painting, there's no magic in that for me. But, you know, we all do things differently, and it's your choice as to how you do it. I'll just show you the way that I do it. I'm going to take that orange off my brush and come up here to the purple. You can see now why I didn't want to get the yellow anywhere near that purple, because it would turn a greyish brown. And then I'm going to use the Inktense pencils on their own over the top of this, just to give it that little bit of added texture. That is so exciting. I'm going to come in with my red and just put some little red marks in here, but I'm not going to use the water on them, I'm just going to leave them alone. And some little red marks just down here by the horizon as the clouds drift away into the distance. And then I'm going to come in with the purple and put some slightly darker clouds coming down here. And I'm going to leave these marks as they are. I'm going to make it a little bit darker up there. So I'll just go back in with my water again. They are magical, aren't they? They really are. Now on the bottom, I'm going to use my water-soluble graphite, and I'm going to use the light wash, and I'm going to use the dark wash. So I'll put my light wash on first. I'm literally making this up as I go along. And then I'll come in with the dark wash. As I said, I'm going to do a whole video on these water-soluble graphites a little bit later on, so watch out for that. Right, back to the water brush. Just ordinary plain water into the light colour first. Take it off on a tissue if you have to. Clean my brush, and then into the dark graphite. So there you go. That's Inktense pencils and water-soluble graphite. And I literally just made that up as I went along. Now we'll have a look at doing a leaf. And we'll do the leaf, we'll draw it first. So just a very quick sketch of a leaf. There we go. Now I'll put my light colour in first. Now these are watercolour pencils. Those were Inktense with ink in them, and these are watercolour pencils with watercolour paint in them. So think about where my greens are going to go, where the dark ones are going, where the light ones are going. I wouldn't actually use this particular dark green if I had a better one, but I've only got 12 of the pencils. You can buy many, many more than that. I'll come down into the stem. Some brown in the stem, bit of brown in there. And now we'll come in with the brush and see what happens. Let the magic happen. And see, the yellow with the watercolours is that little bit more subtle than the yellow with the Inktense. So you could use the two together. If you want slightly softer colours, then use the watercolour pencils. And if you want slightly stronger colours, then use the Inktense. And just blend them together as if you were doing a watercolour painting. This is 100% cotton paper, by the way, that I'm using. I never use anything else. Once you've chosen the paper you want to use for watercolours, stick to it. If you keep changing papers, you've got to start learning all over again what your papers will do for you. So choose your paper and then stick to it. Lines in here. And there we go, there's our leaf. Now down here with this one, what I've done with this is I've already done the drawing and I've already put in all the little bits of coloured pencil, because I didn't want you sitting there for ages watching me just put in those bits of coloured pencil. So I've popped those in first. And I'm going to start off, as we noticed here, you must start with your light colour. So I'm just dropping in some water on my light colour, and then I'm going to come down and go into the dark area. Do one petal at a time, and then all your colours will blend together beautifully. If you keep coming back when it's dry, you're going to get hard edges. So I've washed off my brush because I'd picked up some dark colour there. I've washed off my brush because I now want to come up here into the light. And what I've tried to do here is, I've tried to put a dark line next to where I've got a light bit next to it, and a dark area next to a light area. That's called counter change. Light against dark and dark against light. That's what painting is all about. If you've got light against light, you'll never see it. And if you've got dark against dark, you'll never see it. So always try and get light against dark and dark against light. I'm going to leave that dark one, and I'm going to come over here to this one and do my light bit first. Always do the light bit first, and then go into the dark bit. Now I want that little bit there to be light, so I'm going to take the water out of my brush and just make that light, so that this dark petal will show up really well against that light edge. This is just so magical. It really is. As I say, all the links to these products are in the description down below this video. Now I'm going to come into this dark one here. I should have done my little light bit first. You notice the mistake I made there. Should have come up here first and done the light bit. But I've managed to get around that little mistake without a problem. Over to this one, where I'm going to do the light area first. This petal is sort of bent over, so it's going to go down into a little bit of shadow there, and then up to the end. And then into the dark area at the bottom here, and push that up as much as you want. And this last petal here, there we go. Now down at the bottom, this is the, oh, I've missed a petal out. This dark one here, light bit first, now down into the dark. There we go. Now can you see why I left the edge of this big petal light? Because it shows up against the dark. And here, light shows up against the dark. That's what painting is all about. Light against dark and dark against light. So down here we'll just put in the centre of the flower. Just colour that, and we'll pop in a few little brown marks. We can do those straight onto the wet paint. And I will just strengthen up little bits of the dark down here. I think I'd like them to be slightly dark. Now what you can also do when this is dry, I think some of it is more or less dry now, you can just put in little lines with a dry pencil if you want to do that. And you don't have to wet those afterwards, you just leave them as they are. So there we are. Here we've got Inktense used on its own with water-soluble graphite underneath. Here we've got watercolour pencils just used on their own. And this one, just the outside of the petals drawn, and this was done with Inktense pencils. So you can see that you can mix up these pencils and use them all together in one painting. You could use your watercolours and your Inktense pencils and the water-soluble graphite, because they're all water-based. They are so versatile, and I actually think they're very magical. If you'd like more videos like this, then consider clicking that subscribe button and the little bell icon, and that will let you know when I upload another video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Remember everybody, there is an artist in everyone. Goodbye for now.